Hi everyone, welcome to the Zoe Marley channel, the #1 place for aspiring authors to learn the art of how to write a novel. Today we're going to be going into typical questions. Where do I even start with writing a novel? How do people get through this entire huge process? And if you're someone that is struggling with writer's block on the daily, well, I'm going to teach you a tip to make sure that that is no longer an issue. Well, in today's video, I'm going to go over several strategies and tips so you can understand where to start and how to overcome writer's block. So before we even get started into today's video, did you know that this is my first video ever? I'm doing it. I'm really bad at all things, you know, filming and lighting and editing and all of that. So the good news is I'm pretty good at writing, right? Since this is my first video, I wanted to give you guys a very quick introduction to my channel, what I'm about, what you can expect from me, and the value I can bring to you. Right? So the Zoe Marley channel is for aspiring authors. If you are an author and you've kind of like lost that romance, you know, not really with your spouse, but with your books, then this is a great place for you to be. I am going to be working on getting you 50 ways to write a novel. The Zoe Marley channel is going to start with beginner videos, right? This is probably not where everyone's going to be, but maybe it's where you are. We're going to start with today's video, which is about the spark, that idea that you're going to have. I'm going to go into characters, the cast, world building, you know, the simple things like what is your genre? What age are you writing for? Who are the people you're trying to bring in, right? Because as a writer, even though I 100% say I promote your passion, you're going to do what you do, a lot of times writers don't have the luxury of waiting around for the spark. Like the professional writers, the people that are pumping out content every day, they don't have the luxury of that. I am an aspiring writer. I am not on a time frame. I have a normal 9-to-5 job. I have 2 kids and I am starting a YouTube channel. And I am very fortunate that I have the spark. I have a feeling if you are an aspiring writer, you've had the spark too. So the spark is this huge idea and it's going to be different for everyone, right? Maybe you have this beautiful world and you're like, oh, I need to figure out what it is. But there's some cinematic moment that you have. And this is the initial idea for your story. And when you have this moment, you're like, I can't wait. So the first one I'm going to mention is George R.R. Martin, right? This is the author of Game of Thrones, the huge sensational HBO show, right? There are books. There are books and they're good. Anyway, so George R.R. Martin, it was 1990. That is 30 years ago. Oh my gosh. Maybe longer depending on how old this video is. But right now, that is like 30 years ago. The Starks are like, kind of like, oh, here's the runt, Jon Snow. And he's like, oh. And it ended up being like the coolest guy ever, right? I'm talking about the wolf, not Jon Snow. I mean, he's not bad, but like the wolf. I love Ghost. Anyway, so George R.R. Martin has this vision. And there's one very important fact about this vision that would entirely change everything about the novel if he did not pick up on it. So here you are, you got your Starks, you got their big Starky gear, they got these little pups with them, and he notices that there is a snow. And something in his artistic genius says that's not just ordinary snow, that's the summer snow. Right? Now imagine Game of Thrones where there's no summer snow, where there's no winter is coming. There are no White Walkers. There are none of it. There's none of it. All of those ideas stemmed from this one moment, this one spark, this one idea, that initial spark from Game of Thrones, right? Imagine, take a moment. Imagine not only if he didn't pick up on the summer snow, it would go a step further. What if he was so busy forcing round peg into square hole, beating on it with that hammer, he has this beautiful spark, and he goes, oh, but I got a deadline. I don't have time for that. Get away idea. Imagine how different his life would be. Imagine how different our lives would be without having such an amazing story. And it changed his life forever. We are 30 years from the moment he had that spark. And we are able to see in hindsight how much success that gave him. Also in 1990, 30 years ago, is a lady. And she is coming back from flat shopping, which I think is apartment shopping, condo shopping, house shopping. I don't know. But she is coming back from flat shopping, and she is on a 4-hour train ride from Manchester to London. There are two morals of the story, but we'll start with the spark because that's actually what this video is about. Anyway, none other than J.K. Rowling was on this train, 4-hour train ride, looking out the window, and the spark hits her. Lightning! Right? The spark hits her, and it is a little boy who is on a train just like she is, setting out to his very first adventure. What an awesome spark. So let me get to number 2 here real quick. She forgot a pen and paper. Imagine what your life would be like 30 years from now if you look at this spark and you do something with it. Imagine what life would have been like for J.K. Rowling, for George R.R. Martin, if they had the spark and they ignored it. They said, I don't have time for that. Let's talk about my spark for a minute, okay? I am an inspiring author. I have written 4 books in the past that have all flopped very, very hard. I wrote my first book when I was 15 years old. I have always wanted to become a writer, and I want to share my spark with you. I want to share it, and then I want you to comment below, and I want you to share your spark with me. I want to hear it. I want to know what it is, right? I can't wait to get to know you. I can't wait. So, my spark, like I said, it's a girl, father, nose-to-nose fighting. They are in a war camp that I kind of imagine being similar to what Colorado is today before settlers settled, right? So big pines and there's frost everywhere. That's my spark. That's it. So you have your spark. You have your spark. You're going to comment below with what your spark is. Right? So we have this idea for my novel. Yes, that's why I clicked on this video, is I have an idea and I need to get it on words. Now you're going to ask questions about your idea, right? So I'm looking at this initial spark way back then, and I'm like, okay, who's my character? Why are they in a war? Who's the enemy? Why is her and her father opposites? Why are they fighting? So pretty common questions, like just immediate boom, 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 boom. And some things aren't going to come into full fruition just yet. As you ask these questions, you kind of might have an answer. You might have like this very weird, cloudy idea. So like, for example, when I'm like, okay, who's their enemy? Like they're at war, who's attacking? And I'm like, okay, so it's going to be this fantasy race that's built off of jinn, right? And so I have them, and I've called them the Tainted. Of course, that's not what they call themselves, but you know, from their perspective, they call them the Tainted because they're super bad guys. Not really. Anyway, so that was like this like very vague idea when I asked who's the enemy. And then I had a very specific idea when I asked, why is she and her father fighting? Why are they nose to nose fighting? It was like, oh, she's really bad at something. She has a job in this war and she's not able to do it. She feels like a failure. He's upset because one, his little girl's in danger, and two, she's not producing what he expects her to produce, right? So imagine like a chief sitting there looking at people and being like, you know what? I totally empathize with you. Yeah, I totally understand it. It's so cold out there and it's so wet you can't even really make a fire. And it's not a good idea anyway to be like sending smoke signals out there. So you know what? It's totally okay that we're losing this war. You go get some food, relax. Said no war chief ever. Right? So that's why they're nose to nose fighting. And I love it. I love it. And my questions then revolved around everything to do with that scene. And guess what? That was the scene in chapter 1. That is the first way I introduce my characters to the world. And the reason for that, and it might not be the same for everyone, right? But in my particular case, it was a perfect opening scene. And it is what made me fall in love with the book. And I hope it's what makes everyone else fall in love with the book, right? So I feel like people, for the most part, that are writers, currently, they already have the idea, right? They're probably already writing, and they're dealing with writer's block on the daily. What does this have to do with this work? So I'll tell you, and as this channel grows, I'll tell you little tidbits here and there of how when I am lacking inspiration, I try and like, I just do things to get inspiration, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's getting like a mini weekend away, right? Going hiking. Sometimes it's binge reading an entire weekend away as my kids watch SpongeBob. And so I was reading this book. This is Crown Jewel by Sherwin Smith. And this is something that I read as a teenager. Maybe I was 12 or 13, right? I love the book. In fact, don't think I read this exact one. The other one is on my iPad. So here's what we got here, right? And at the very end of this, I get through the whole book and I'm looking at the last page, and this is something Sherwood Smith says. There I was, 20 years old, sitting in a freezing room looking out of a stone-framed window at the stone buildings of Vienna. Oh, gorgeous. My Southern California wardrobe had turned out to be hopelessly inadequate. I was cold, hungry, and I discovered I was very, very ignorant. Can anyone relate? Scamming good grades in high school does not make you smart nor knowledgeable. I agree. So I sat there, and though I was working on a story that I had been planning for a couple of years, round peg, square hole, images tugged at me. What I first saw was Mel's foot caught in the trap. I was appalled, but the images just kept coming. Oh, that's not what she says. She actually says, but the images kept insisting, which is way better. The trap was not set by the bad guys, but the good. So like she's already like kind of thought of this like weird little twist. She saw flags fluttering from the warm stones of Athronel. I am sorry I slaughter every fantasy name out there. It should be a crime. And a provocative pair of gray eyes. I sat down at my desk, and the first half of the book unfolded with cinematic clarity. Guys, this is the spark. This is what we're talking about. She had been working on a totally different novel for years. And boom, this happened. So I was stuck, writer's block, forcing it with daily. I'm talking about like, I am forcing out 100 words a day, which is no bueno for me. You know, it's not like 100 good words. It was 100 bad words. I'm just forcing them, right? Just like going through the slog of being uninspired. And I read that and I was like, oh my God. And guess what I did? I, for the first time, had revisited my spark. You know, I had written it forever ago, but I hadn't actually, from a brainstorming perspective, revisited it. The cool thing is that when you do that, you actually get to ask questions that aren't like novice entry questions, right? In the beginning, you're first like getting to know your world. But then once you've kind of been in your world for a little bit and you go back to your spark from a brainstorming perspective, you get to ask harder questions. And so some of these harder questions for me, especially had to do with my main character's father. So he's achieved, she's not getting results, and his little girl's in danger, right? And so he's heated. She feels like a failure. She feels like he keeps sending her on bad missions just to keep her safe, right? So she's heated. But at the end of the day, I really missed an amazing opportunity. And it's not just like he was mad because he was a chief and one of his soldiers wasn't performing. It was like, oh yeah, he's also a father. And he loves her and he's mad at her. And just like they have different looks, right? She is like based off of your stereotypical Native American, and he is very stereotypical Viking. And just like their looks, they come from different worlds. Here he is letting his daughter in the middle of war, and it's because of who she is. In this particular world, she is mixed, right? So she's half Borelai, which is a race based off of several different tribal races in the world, and then half Ironfoot, which is, of course, based on your stereotypical European people. So she's mixed. And while she loves her father and loves her family, she has never fit in with them, right? And even though her mother is dead and can't teach her Borelai ways, her uncle has stepped in. And her uncle has shown her all of these ways and all of these things, and how to survive, and how to hunt, how to scout, how to do everything that his people typically do, right? And so she's not made for the big poofy dresses and to be waving a fan and fainting when danger comes by. That's not who she is. And her father knows that, but her father is progressive. And I didn't realize this in the beginning. I didn't even realize to ask this question when I had that first spark, but he's a progressive. Yes, he doesn't believe women should be on the battlefield. His Ironfoot ways, he does not believe women should be on the battlefield. But he married a female warrior. He married a Forelai. And his daughter being half Forelai, he knows that's a part of her. And he can't take that away from her. He can't cage her. He can't do anything. So even though he's uncomfortable with her being out there in the middle of a war, he also loves her enough to be progressive, to support her, to drive her. He's a great father. And I didn't see that first time around. And so when he's yelling at her, yes, I kind of got a good feeling why she was upset with him. But he is pissed off because he's scared. He's a father. And that moment changed so much of my part one, right? I didn't rewrite the whole thing, but I definitely added way more emotion from his perspective. I added the right emotion from his perspective. And I added a few scenes that I would have never added. And lastly, I was able to end part one on an awesome note. Once I went back, revisited my spark, I was able to just forget that writer's block ever existed. Edit, add, and then plan for the perfect part one cut. It came to me, as Sherwood Smith says, in cinematic clarity. And guys, that's the importance of the spark. That's the importance of revisiting your spark. That's the importance of brainstorming and asking the right questions. Yes, start writing. The moment you have an idea, start writing. But don't give up brainstorming. Don't give up your inspiration. Don't forget there's way more to writing than just getting a word count. So I hope you got value out of this video. Please hit the like button if you did. Don't forget to check out my channel. It's a new channel. Hit subscribe. I'm going to be pushing out 50 videos on how to write a novel. That is a lot. So please check out my site. Comment below. Tell me what your spark is. Tell me, hey, Zoe, this is the kind of content I want to see. These are the questions I'm struggling with. Find me on Instagram, on Facebook. Let's build this community. Let's help each other. Become the writers that we want to be. Thank you.